once again from the 704 for episode 35 of the 815 Exchange. And well, ladies and gentlemen, first off, happy Easter to everybody that celebrates. That was yesterday. For some of our college students, certainly here at University of North Carolina at Charlotte's, we got registration this week for next semester. Everything's back in person, so I guess depending on how you feel about in person or Zoom University, that might be a good thing or it might not be a good thing for you. What else happens? That's about it. I really want to talk about college basketball, so that's what we're going to start off with. But before I get to that, of course, as always, timestamps are in the description. If you're looking for a certain topic, and we got plenty today, go ahead, go to the description, hop right to it. It'll take you straight there. Remember to like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying the content and for more stuff. My social media links, as always, are also in the description. And without further ado, let's get straight to it. Let's not waste any time, ladies and gentlemen. Even though it's April, it is still March Madness, even though it is starting to come to an end. And before I get to the obvious, and of course today's events, probably about the time that this comes out, and about 2 hours after this comes out, national championship between Gonzaga and Baylor is today. But of course, we're going to build up to that. We're going to start off with the women, actually, and we're going to go do the Final Four stuff, the whole Final Four, to kind of build to our conclusions here. So, starting off with the women, because the women's tournament was also great. National championship we'll talk about, but the women's tournament for the most part, both tournaments actually have delivered like a lot, have done exactly what you would expect from an NCAA tournament, what we want from an NCAA tournament. Both tournaments have provided, so shout out to the women, shout out to the men, they held it down. But to start with the Final Four here, before we get to the women's national championship, we have Staford versus South Carolina. One of the best games, I think, in either tournament. It was a very, very, very close game. Went back and forth there. South Carolina at the end. Shout out to Don Staley, one of the best coaches in college basketball. Had two opportunities. Aaliyah Boston, their star for South Carolina, she had a chance at the end. Beal had a chance. Zia Cook had 25. I wish, and I'm sure they wish, that they could have got it to Z Cook. At the end there, she had 25. She was hot on game. Of course, one of the best guards, I think, in America. But Haley Jones, who had 24 in this game, and Staford able to hold on at the end there, despite the two agonizing misses for South Carolina. That was a really good South Carolina team. Like I said, Z Cook, Aaliyah Boston, Beal, even though she didn't have a great game. Destiny Henderson, also a really good player for South Carolina. They got a really good recruiting class coming in. It might be the number one recruiting class over UConn, actually. Even though UConn's getting Azzy Flood, of course, number one player in the nation. But I think South Carolina, they're going to be fine as usual. But huge win for Staford. Moving on, UConn, speaking of, took on Arizona in their Final Four matchup. And Arizona pulled off the upset 69-59. Great job defensively. Did a fantastic job defensively on Paige Buckers, the National Player of the Year for the women this year. Paige is a phenom, but they shut her down. They did a great job shutting her down. They said Paige was not going to win this game for them, and Paige was unable, had an awful shooting night. Pretty good game from Kristen Williams. Another 20-piece. She had a couple of those. Honestly, she was pretty much neck and neck, I think, with Paige in terms of this tournament and being UConn's best player. You could argue, actually, that Kristen Williams was probably UConn's best player throughout the tournament. But Ari McDonald, she's been the trigger woman for Arizona. She had 26 in this game. Huge for Arizona. They weren't expected to get here. But, hey, shout out to Bill Walton, Pac-12, Conference of Champions. So that set up, of course, yesterday's national championship between Staford and Arizona. And as you may or may not know now, this one, of course, went down to the wire once again. Staford wins the national championship 54-53. Cam Brink had a solid game, filling it up. She's a very special talent. Definitely see her winning some Defensive Player of the Years. Haley Jones, though, man. Haley Jones, former #1 overall recruit in the nation herself. I've been talking about a lot of top-rated recruits. But that's kind of how it goes in women's basketball, actually. Even though we've kind of swayed away from that in the men's side, the women's side, I guess because they stay longer, you see a lot of those top high-end recruits don't quote-unquote bust as much because they're there for 3-4 years. But Haley Jones, she balled out. She had 17 and 8. Shout out to her. Lexi Hull also had a double-double. This was a very special Stanford group. Kiana Williams didn't have a great game, but she was a great leader throughout the tournament. So shout out to Stanford. Shout out to Tara Vanderveer, all-time wins leader, even over Gino right now. So shout out to Tara. She's a great coach. However, I would be amiss if I didn't talk about, unlike those 2 Final Four games, some of the other women's games we've seen where it was some beautiful basketball, it was some very enjoyable basketball, this was not a great game. Even though the score says it was a tight game, it was a very tight, it was a very tense game, this was not a great game. Especially the way it ended. Oh my goodness. That was one of possibly the 2 worst offensive possessions I've ever seen to end a basketball game in at least quite some time, possibly ever. I don't know what Stanford was thinking. It looked like they were going for an ISO with Kiana Williams to, just put it on ice. But then she gave it up to Cam Brink with 2 seconds left when Brink was highly contested guarded. And even if Brink had, caught the pass, I don't think she'd have gotten a shot, at least a good shot up. It would have been a fading, it would have been like a turnaround fadeaway high mid. Like it was a terrible possession. And then Arizona, Ari McDonald, I get it, she's your best player. She's been your star throughout the tournament, throughout the season. But I personally, once again, would not have run that play to end the game with the national championship on the line. A fadeaway three-pointer over 3, almost 4 people. To each their own. But, I mean, at the end of the day, Stanford was #1 for a lot of the season. Had a really good group. Overcame a lot. They got a great story. Got some great players. So, fully deserving team. So, shout out to Stanford. It's a women's basketball program. They get it. I think that was their first since 1992. Also continues Stanford's somewhere around 20-30 year streak. Actually, it might be in the 40s. I forget what the actual statistic was. But Stanford has the longest streak of having a national champion in one of the sports for any of the Division I schools. It's something like 40-some years of consecutively having a national champion. Of course, Shane Griffin for the now defunct, by the way, Keep Stanford Wrestling. Held it down in wrestling, so I think they already continued the streak. But this one gets you one in team sports, so I don't know if that was, any kind of count. But shout out to Stanford for getting it done. Now let's move over to the men. Of course, this is the headliner, and this is the main event, starting with what happens tonight. But before I get to that, let's talk about Baylor and Houston. Let's go to the Final Four. Baylor completely dominated this game. It was never close, even though Sasser had 20 points. Just complete domination from Baylor. 78-59. Easy work. Davion Mitchell, Jared Butler had solid games. It felt like they got their whole team was on the court in a Final Four game, which is ridiculous. But Houston just didn't have it. Shout out to Kelvin Simpson for getting them there. Shout out to Houston for making it to the Final Four. That's an accomplishment in itself. But Baylor, all the way, it was never even close. Now, Gonzaga versus UCLA. I don't really need to say much, even though I am going to say quite a bit about this game. Game of the year, one of the games of the century, one of the best NCAA tournament, one of the best college basketball games probably of all time, with an all-time finish. This game, I cannot tell you how good. This was a fantastic game. You know how back on NCAA Football 14 and the NCAA Football Series, not just NCAA Football 14, but you used to have the ESPN Instant Classic pop up after you played a really good game, right? That notification would have definitely popped up for this game. It was nuts. Went to overtime. Johnny Juzang, 29 points. Kentucky, it has been straight misery. It's been misery for the past 2 years. It's just been a series of mistakes made. Not saying Calipari has lost his touch, but it hasn't been a great 2 years. And Johnny Juzang leaving the program after getting no playing time at Kentucky and then balling out at UCLA and balling out of control here in the NCAA tournament is just further elimination of whatever issues need to be worked out at Kentucky. Juzang, absolute monster. If he declares for the draft, dude should be a first rounder. Dude is an absolute bucket. Cody Riley had played a solid game. Jamie Jacquez Jr., who's also been kind of the second guy to the Robin to James Batman in a sense so far. He played a solid game. Tiger Campbell. Also, tidbit about Tiger Campbell, a lot of people realize. Once upon a time in my class, coming through high school basketball, way back in like middle school, Tiger Campbell was actually the #1 player in our class. I just want to point that out. Before he reclassed up, Tiger was the #1 player in our class, so I, completely foresaw him becoming a star here. His size doesn't matter. Dude's a great point guard, and part of one of the major reasons why UCLA is going to be such a very good team next year. They played a heck of a game. Shout out to Big Cronin and what he's doing over there. Even though I'm usually fight on, gotta give a shout out to UCLA. Played a great game. Both teams ultra efficient. Gonzaga's there's been a lot of talk about how efficient Gonzaga's been this year. It's been one of the main points about how good they are. And one of the strong points of the team is how efficient they are scoring. UCLA played about as good of a game as you can play against Gonzaga. They matched their efficiency. That was part of what made it such a great game, was there wasn't a bunch of missed shots. These teams were just hitting. Even shots you would be like, how did these go in? But they were hitting. But yeah, Zhang, UCLA get into overtime. But I have to talk about Drew Timme and his 25. Drew Timme is an absolute bucket. Another thing people forget, more recruiting news, I stay up to date on recruiting. Timme was almost a 5-star player. For those that don't know, he was a 4-star, but he was quite a high 4-star. I was always just kind of tracking, seeing what Timme was doing at Gonzaga, but his footwork is insane. His footwork is insane. And he's a solid athlete. Is he a great athlete? No. Is he a great defensive player? Not necessarily, but he's a solid defensive player. I don't get why people say he can't play in the NBA. I definitely think he'd be worth a draft pick. He can definitely play in the NBA, especially if, with all due respect to Evan Mobley, I've heard a lot of claims about Evan Mobley being some generational defensive prospect. Drew Timme just gave him the work 2 games ago. I think I tweeted this out. Probably popped that right here. So I'm wondering where the disconnect is. He can shoot. He's got good touch. He's got great footwork. He can play defense. He's got Timme can play in the NBA. He does a bucket. He's a bucket. Jay Ajayi also at 22. Another guy. That's a bucket. Charles Barkley said it best about Baylor and Gonzaga. They have the Jimmies and they have the Joes. They have players that can just play. And of course, I have to talk about the man Jalen Suggs, top 4 pick in the draft, in my opinion, #4 guy on my big board. And that's something I'll talk about, I think, at the buzzer, about kind of my little rankings there. But Jalen Suggs, the way he closed this game, he has a clutch gene. The block, that's such an iconic play. The block on Cody Riley, yes, I'm going to call it a block. There's the thing about whether he established, but anyway, the play happened, all right? Block, recovered the ball, got down the court, an insane pass. I don't think enough people talk about the pass. The block was crazy, right? But that pass was incredible. Insane pass to Timme, dunk, taunt. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. And then, of course, the buzzer beater at the end. One of the greatest buzzer beaters. Probably the second greatest buzzer beater behind, I guess, Chris Jenkins. Buzzer beater, I think, was what he kind of came with the consensus as a college basketball community. Insane. I just kind of had a feeling also, kind of like what LeBron said, I had a feeling when I saw him cross midcourt, I was like, he's going to make this. And then when I saw them there, I was like, wow, that's going in. And what do you know, winning, everything about that moment, everything about that shot was legendary. The celebration was legendary with him basically floating in the air. He hopped on top. The fist pumps, the Ajayi and Gonzaga around him doing that. It was just, I was yelling, sorry to my roommate because I was just making a bunch of noise. But yeah, what a game. What a game. And that leads us, of course, to tonight's Gonzaga versus Baylor, the national championship. By the time you're watching this, that game might be over or it might be about to start. So we will give my predictions and we'll see. We'll see if I'm right. I think this is going to be a very good game. I don't know if it's going to live up to Gonzaga UCLA, but I think it's going to be a very good game. It's kind of funny that in the tournament of upsets this year, in a very chaotic NCAA tournament, of course, the two teams that have been the dominant teams throughout the year that we thought this is the game we were supposed to have between Gonzaga and Baylor, but COVID got rid of it. But we get it back here in the national championship. The two teams that everybody said were a tier above everybody else throughout the year, they meet here in the national championship. And they match up very well against each other. They match up very, very well, as in they match up pretty evenly. I really don't know who's going to win this matchup. I couldn't predict it. I know I picked Gonzaga on all my sheets, but I don't know. Davion Mitchell, Jared Butler really stepped up. He really improved. I wasn't worried about Mitchell so far, but Butler I was a little bit worried about, but he showed up last game. He showed he's got it. Baylor's got the horses. Like I've said about Gonzaga. Gonzaga has the horses. They got the dogs. They got the personnel. Besides even Mark Few being the best coach in America, they got the people. They got the depth to get it done. But Baylor also has the depth. They have the players. They got the star power to get it done. So this is just a great matchup as a neutral. Both teams looking for the first national championship. I don't really care who wins, even though I pick Gonzaga. Honestly, at this point, don't care who wins. I want another instant classic, and I think this one could deliver another instant classic. But it's going to be a very, very interesting matchup. Just a lot of storylines. Butler and Mitchell versus Andrew Nimhard and Jalen Suggs. Who's going to cover Timmy? Just so much talent. Scott Drew is also a great coach. Mark Few versus Drew. Just a great, great game. And it's the one we've been waiting for, so I'm glad we're getting it. Gonzaga versus Baylor. You can leave me your predictions of what you thought about the game and who you thought was going to win. I have no idea. Split right down the middle. If you had a gun up to my head, I'd probably say Gonzaga since I picked them. So if I had to pick, probably Gonzaga, but I don't know. Don't even really care. Just hope for a great game and a great finish to what has been, even though all the adversity, all the Rona, has been a very, very good NCAA tournament and a very, very good college season. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Champions League is back. Yes, Champions League is back. We return to the soccer, or for my international viewers, football. We return to this world because the Champions League is back this week, thank God. Even though the league play has held it down, there's been some interesting storylines throughout. But of course, we're here for Champions League, right? This week we got Real Madrid versus Liverpool. We got Man City versus Dortmund in the first leg on Tuesday. Real Madrid and Liverpool. Also, another thing I have to point out, we got some very interesting forms going on with these teams. We got some teams that are in awful slumps, like Dortmund, and then we got teams like Bayern and Man City that are scorching hot. So, very, very interesting storylines. But Real Madrid, Liverpool, interesting matchup. Liverpool's been looking very good. Of course, Mane and Salah held it down against Leipzig last in the quarterfinals. Well, not the quarterfinals, but in the round of 16. They held it down. But Real Madrid, Champions League, this is what they do. This is what Zidane does. Can they pull the magic out? Real Madrid been dealing with a lot of injury problems. If I had to pick a team here, I'd pick Liverpool. I think Liverpool and Klopp, I think they get it done here against Real Madrid. Should be a very interesting leg. I'll be watching, of course. Man City took on Dortmund. Well, they're taking on Dortmund, excuse me. And, of course, we've had the storylines with Erling Haaland, of course, him, Raiola, and his father, well, just Raiola and his father, were out in Barcelona discussing possible transfer news there. However, the fee looked ridiculous. Barca fans weren't really going for it. Didn't seem like Barca was really going for it. They're really trying to make that Haaland at Barca, Mbappe, Real Madrid dream happen. But Man City, of course, probably the second best team. If there was a power ranking, I'd put Pep's got this team going. There's been a lot of talk about Haaland going to Man City. This serves almost as like a trial for him. Almost like a trial to see how good Haaland is. Maybe he can make Man City want to pay that fee. We got Aguero leaving Man City. Of course, another storyline that's kind of going under the radar here. Jadon Sancho comes back home to Man City. That's where he started off before he left for Dortmund. So, yeah, plenty of storylines in that one. Should be very interesting. I got Man City, even though Dortmund's got the dynamo and they got the machine. They got Sancho. They got all the young talent. I think Man City gets it done. Dortmund's not been playing well at all recently, so I would pick Man City to advance here. Bayern and PSG, rematch of the Champions League final last year. Robert Lewandowski is out for this game. PSG also has a bunch of COVID-related issues going on. Florenzi, more importantly, Marco Verratti will not be playing in this game. Yes, Neymar's back, but I would still pick Bayern. PSG, this just feels like a classic PSG choke job coming up. Even with the talent they got, I feel like they're gonna fold. I feel like PSG is gonna do what they always do, and they're gonna fold. Bayern is the best team in the world for a reason. Even without Lua, I think they get it done here. Even as good as Mbappe's been, I still think Bayern gets it done. I just think them as a team are on another level, and they have the talent to make up for even losing the guy that's playing like the best player on the planet right now. Porto takes on Chelsea. This is a very, very intriguing matchup. Chelsea, after that unbeaten run to start off with Tuchel, has been up and down. They just got thrashed by West Ham. Pulisic finally getting back in form, but of course Pulisic gets hurt because his tendons and hamstring is made of paper. So frustrating. But Porto just took out Juventus. I'm going to go with them continuing it and keeping it on. I think they're making a little Cinderella run. I think they're the Cinderella here of the Champions League this year. I think they take out Chelsea. At least they win this first leg, and they get it done. It should be a very interesting week, especially when we get here to the quarterfinals. Every matchup is pretty much must-watch. And it's the best of the best going against each other. It's what Champions League is about. So should be a very, very interesting Champions League quarterfinals, especially this first leg. Really establishing dominance. It was a very interesting first leg for the round of 16. So I fully expect another interesting and exciting first leg, especially with these matchups. And yeah, that's Champions League. All right, now let's head over to the entertainment biz. We got TV, movies, and music once again. How about that? Spoiler alert for those that haven't watched Falcon episode 3, Invincible episode 4, and haven't watched Godzilla vs. Kong, of course. Spoiler alert, because I will be talking about some plot points here. So if you need to skip ahead, feel free to do so. But without further ado, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 3. The show continues to get better and better. Baron Zemo is back, and he is back and better than ever. The dynamic between him, Sharon, who also made her appearance finally here in episode 3, him, Sharon, Sam, and Bucky was great to watch throughout this episode. Zemo, again, this is great. This is another reason why it's great to not always kill off your villains, right? Because bringing them back and it adds to the story, it adds and allows you to have episodes and moments and narratives like the one we have currently in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Even though I'm sure Zemo will, pull something off, per usual. It's so much fun to see him kind of play almost like this anti-hero role here. Zemo looks a lot more powerful than I remember him as well. But yeah, Brule is such a good actor. He's killing it as Zemo. Cool to see Sharon back, her new situation, her being off the books, trying to figure out who that woman was that picked her up at the end of the episode. Is she still with the CIA, even though she said she's not allowed back in America? What's going on there? Is she the buyer for the stuff? Is she possibly a villain here? There's a lot of different, scenarios going on, a lot of interesting things going on. I felt like we saw Latvia. So kind of building to getting closer to some Doom action, more and more hints about the Fantastic Four, perhaps. Sokovia, we talked about Sokovia, of course, because Zemo was back. Sam and Bucky's dynamic as always. That whole scenario of when they got busted in Mandiapur. Yeah, in Mandiapur. Finally got to see Mandiapur, which was great to see as well. Very interested to see more of that. It looked a lot like kind of like cyberpunk-ish. I saw somebody else say that. It looked cyberpunk-ish. Would be dope to see more of that kind of explored, whether or not in this series, but just kind of overall. It's got such a cool dynamic in the comics and what it is as this like ultimate crime city. So yeah, very cool. Very good episode, man. Very good episode 3. We got to see John Walker act out a little bit more and him continue to tread that line Will he fully just kind of go straight heel, even though he's already heel with the audience? But yeah, great episode from Falcon and Winter Soldier. Can't wait for episode 4. Speaking of an episode 4, Invincible episode 4 came out on Friday, of course, as well. And yeah, another great episode. This is, again, turning into one of the best shows, I think, on television, along with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Invincible. If you have not watched it already, go ahead and watch it on Amazon Prime, or however you watch it. I don't really care. Amazon's not running me a check, so I'm not advertising. However, Jeff Bezos, Amazon marketing department, if you want to sponsor me, feel free. I will absolutely put up a giant Amazon Prime subscription box right here for people and advertise for you. But Invincible, great show. Great show. Continue to kind of seeing what's to do with Omni-Man. Dark Blood, they did my boy Damien Dark Blood dirty. We got to see Amber and Mark's relationship continue to evolve. Mark left for another planet for the first time, so that was very interesting. We got to see the Martians, but he might not wiped out the Martian race. Do those space huggers. We saw one of them get back, or some sort of alien with not great intentions get back on that spaceship with the other crew members. We saw that at the end there, kind of as like a teaser. So a lot of things heating up. See what to do with Mark and Eve. There seems to be something there. I haven't read the comics, so I can't tell you too much far ahead. And I know that they're actually changing some stuff up, kind of like with The Boys, which I kind of like. They're able to the creator, Kirkman's able to flesh out some more things, do some things that he would have probably done a little bit different back then when he wrote it. He gets to do it here in the TV show and make it work for TV, and they're doing that. We have Robot at it again with the cloning process, and kind of seeing what he's doing there. He took Rexpo's blood, and he's kind of messing with that. So a lot of interesting narratives in Invincible. Such a good show. Such a good show. High rewatch factor. I feel the need a lot of times. I always want to go back and like rewatch these episodes. But yeah, Invincible, great show. Godzilla versus Kong. Delivered. It absolutely delivered. It absolutely delivered. It gave us exactly what we wanted, which was Godzilla versus King Kong. Well, Kong became a king. He wasn't necessarily a king yet, but as we saw when he went to the middle of Earth, he became King Kong. He basically became like Kongdor. Honestly, the axe was tough though. I can't even lie. The axe was tough. It felt like he had almost like a Batman element with all the giant bats running around. Would love to see more of Hollow Earth. I said Middle Earth. Sound like I'm talking. Hollow Earth. Would love to see more of that explode. Hope they do some more Monsterverse. I know they got a lot of more monsters to go through, even though they've went through kind of like the main ones, of course, Ghidorah, Kong, Godzilla. They've gone through it and all that stuff. But still think there's a lot to be explored, and I would be super down. The fights were incredible with this. The CGI was incredible. Hong Kong got absolutely wiped out in that final battle. Mecha Godzilla. I mean, there were some things with the narrative that I could critique, like Millie Bobby Brown. Not a bad actor, but her kind of whole scenario, even though her chemistry with Brian Tyree, that was great. They had some enjoyable, funny moments. But their whole narrative was kind of like tacked on just so they had a side and not Kong's side. Kong's side was much better. Like his people, it was way more interesting than MBB's when it just kind of felt a little bit flat. Mecha Godzilla, interesting way to get him. Cool that they made it kind of Ghidorah, even though I had to suspend my brain for somehow how they got Ghidorah's like brain patterns, even though it was just a skull. Anyways, it was nice to see Ghidorah kind of take control of Mechagodzilla in that situation, seeing how powerful Mechagodzilla was. Godzilla versus Kong, the actual matchup. They said they were going to give us the definitive winner. They did. They gave us the definitive winner. And I mean, let's be honest. Did we really think Kong was going to beat Godzilla? I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. It's Godzilla. It's Godzilla. I know it's Kong, but it's Godzilla. What was Kong really going to do against Godzilla? Even though Kong did take out Mechagodzilla, he got the last laugh. And they showed a little bit of respect. Godzilla went back out to the seas. Kong, I guess, is protecting the land. We got two kings now. But yeah, great movie. Well, I can't say great movie, but it was a very good movie. It was a very entertaining movie. If you came for Kong versus Godzilla and to see the big kaiju monsters fighting, which is what you should have and what I and millions of other people did, then you got what you were looking for. Hope they do some more with the Monsterverse. Super interesting. Hope you see Godzilla and Kong meet again as friends or as foes. Always interesting. But yeah, great movie. Continues to prove why HBO Max was a great idea. Some of it came out, so also some people were able to see it in the movies. That was dope. I unfortunately was not one of those people. I watched it on HBO Max. I think it'd been crazy to see in the movie theater, but I was unable to. But yeah, shout out to that. And to end off our entertainment portion here, for the game, Roddy Ricch returns alongside 42 Dugg, and they dropped the song For the Gang. I thought it was good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Added it to the playlist. If you haven't already, go check it out. I thought it was very good. Well, I can't say very good. I think it was good. It was good. I can't say very good. I can't say great because I don't think it was like their best stuff ever or whatever. But it was a good song. It was nice to hear Roddy after a long time. I know Lil TJ dropped the album, Destined to Win. I believe I haven't heard it yet. Probably gonna listen to that sometime when I get some free time. Hopefully during the week, I'll try to listen to that. I wasn't in too much of a hurry, even though I think I enjoyed his last project. But yeah, I heard some kind of mixed reviews on it, so we'll see. We'll see for myself. Maybe I'll talk about that next episode. But yeah, that was entertainment. Good week in television. Good week in movies. Quiet week in music, but for the game, if you haven't already, go check it out. That's entertainment. Now, for the NBA, the last major topic I have here on my notes. And it's not going to be too long of an NBA section, even though it'll kind of bleed into At the Buzzer, as it usually does. Game-wise, two major events. We had the Sixers take on the Timberwolves in a very, very interesting matchup. Very interesting matchup of Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns. Of course, they've got history, as we all know. In this game, of course, delivered the goods on that portion as well. Embiid had 24, and the Sixers got the win. But Cat definitely won the matchup. He had 39, 14, and 5, I believe. Absolute monster game from Cat. Anthony Edwards also had 27, and the Wolves still lost. Shout out to the Sixers, though. Tobias Harris had a 30-piece, I know. But Cat also had that insane poster on Embiid. But, of course, we had that back-and-back. Very entertaining matchup. Two of the best centers, two of the best... Well, they're not necessarily young, but they're still pretty young. Young centers in the game. Two of the best players in the game in Cat and Embiid, so that always delivers. That was very entertaining. On the dark side, sorry for my Warriors fans, because it got ugly. They played Toronto, who is not a very necessarily good team this year. I think they're 19 and 30. I think this was their second win in like 13 games. Beat the crap out of the Golden State Warriors, 130 to 77. I think the Warriors were down by 60 at one point. Actually, the margin of victory here was 63. They got beat by 63. I don't remember. I don't know if there's a statistic on this. I don't know if this is the largest margin of victory since however many years, but I can't recall a team in the NBA getting beat by 63 in quite a long time. Shout out to Pascal Siakam, though, because he had 36. But, yeah, awful game for the Warriors. I guess this is what happens when Draymond and Curry cannot play. The Warriors get absolutely torched by a not very good Raptors team. This Warriors team has been up here and then down here. I think it all stems from the injuries to Curry and the fact that they have absolutely no bench. The bench is garbage, with all due respect. Even though Nico's been pretty good here and there, the overall bench for the Warriors, garbage. Just straight garbage. And yeah, they got torched. Some off-the-court stuff perhaps was a little bit more interesting here this week in the NBA. Kevin Durant versus Michael Rappaport. I don't need to read it out for the sake of my people that may be affected by Katie's comments. But yeah, Katie, again, me and my boy Rob, we were talking about this yesterday on a long phone call. And some of what we were talking about, I'll talk about at the buzzer, what he had to say. about some of the current sports situations. But why does KD feel the need, even though it endears KD, because it's like somebody, you don't always see an athlete of his status responding to these people, and it kind of makes it feel more personable. But why are you responding to these people? Even though I know Michael Rappaport, very famous, has connections, may even know from what KD said, it sounded like he said him and Mike have way worse discussions and say way worse things to them on a regular basis. Why does he feel the need to always have to clap back? Even though I get it, but bro, you're Kevin Durant. You don't have to respond to some of this, bro. You really don't. But thanks for the entertainment, KD. Hope you're feeling better. And you can join your Super Mega All-Star Team USA team and sweep your way to a championship, which you better do. I didn't forget. Y'all better, if I'm giving y'all a minimum of 2 games, y'all can lose in the playoffs. The Nets got 2 games they can lose in the playoffs. Y'all better win the championship. But thanks for the entertainment this week, KD. Also, Paul Pierce was wilding on Instagram. Absolutely wilding. That man is married, but he was not married that day. Then had the audacity to hit us with a good morning the next day. You know what? Be great. Be great, Paul. Hall of Famer. Be great. Be great, Paul. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to let you be great. I'm going to let you be great. Wildin'. I don't know if you meant to send that out. I don't think you did. But yeah, I'm going to let you be great. That's the retired life of an NBA player. Can't blame him, I guess. You know, hey, it is what it is. But yeah, shout out to KD and Paul Pierce for providing the entertainment this week. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to, of course, at the buzzer, where you hear from my friends or from you, the audience, about your opinions on the past week in sports or just kind of anything, and I kind of comment and bring it to you. So, kind of to bring it back here, about what me and Rob were talking about, in terms of kind of related to KD, to an extent here. Actually, yeah, kind of related to KD. And kind of our feelings about the Big Three area and the super team era. He brought up some good points about how, in all due respect, well, not all due respect, how do I word this? Even though I have my gripes, admittedly, about KD taking parity away from the league now for a second straight time, can't really blame him because it's kind of our fault for the amount of emphasis is what we were talking about. The emphasis we've kind of put on rings in terms, and it started off with Bron in the sense, even though LeBron was not the first super team, of course we all know about the Boston Celtics. That was even, I mean, you could probably go further and say some teams were a super team, but I guess the Celtics started this modern run, so to speak, of the Big Three, right? The Big Three cinema with Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett. They started it. Then we had to go to Bron, and Bron, of course, became more famous for it because of the Heatles and such forth. And now we have KD taking it to the absolute max. And I can't really blame, honestly, on a personal level, I can't really blame KD for what he's doing. We said his legacy wouldn't be made if he didn't, win a championship. Now he's getting automatic rings because he's done the super team thing better than anybody else. Even though it was a cowardice, bummish move or whatever. What a great, move or whatever. Going to the team that just 3-1 you and the team that just had the greatest record in NBA history to assume what I believe is the greatest team possibly of all time in that prime KD Golden State Warriors teams, because that team is just straight cheese. And now again with this Nets super mega all-star team with the most all-star appearances with the Lakers of all time. On one team. He's just doing it better than everybody else. Even though those rings won't hold the same weight as other rings, and I think that's something that's going to happen when he's eventually compared to the all-time greats, because KD is an all-time great. When he retires, he'll be one of the greatest players of all time. We'll definitely have him in that consideration, top 10 probably, I would think. I think those rings won't hold the same weight, but I can't really fault him. Taking away my biases, I can't really fault him for what he's done, because he's just done it better than everybody else. And that's kind of what me and Rob were talking about. You can tell me what you think about that. Also, had some discussions, even besides with Rob, with other people in my friend group. Like Will said, in terms of if the Lakers, who are down horrible right now, by the way, absolutely down horrendous, I don't know if they're making out the West personally, but if the Lakers somehow make it to the NBA Finals and Bron gets back, if they take out the Nets, would that make him the greatest player of all time? That's been a kind of a discussion that's kind of heated up over the past couple weeks. I think if they somehow make it there, and as I've said on this podcast, Jordan is my number one, Bron is not my number two. But if they somehow make it to the finals this year and they beat ISO Gang, I will have no problems calling him the GOAT. I will have no problems. Even I'm a LeBron fan personally. I'm not a Bron sexual or whatever, right? I'm not some super mega writer. I'm realistic about this. I think that just comes from me being a sports fan in general. But I still think Jordan's currently the greatest player of all time. Of course, Bron's career is still going on. He can still break it. But if they do somehow beat the ISO Gang's super team this year, I will absolutely have no problems with considering him the greatest player of all time. Raw also, and he is a not so much a LeBron hater, but a LeBron fan hater, as he says. He would share the same sentiment, while Will, he's been on the podcast before in a couple different episodes way back when. He's also my roommate. Said that wasn't enough. That wouldn't be enough to call Bron the GOAT. So you, the audience at home, you tell me, if the Lakers beat the Nets this year, would that make LeBron the greatest player of all time? If he's not, in your eyes, the greatest player of all time already, you can let me know about how you feel about that and what your thoughts about that are. And yeah, that's at the buzzer for this week. So what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is we have reached the Roundup. Yes, we have reached the Roundup. And we have a big Roundup here. So let's get straight to it. Let's not waste any time here. Montverde took out Sunrise Christian in a rematch of a game that happened earlier. I think Sunrise took out Montverde, if you remember, earlier this season. I talked about that here on the podcast. Shout out to Kennedy Chandler and Kendall Brown for their efforts actually throughout the season. But in the GEICO Nationals, when it matters, with the national championship on the line, Montverde, Ryan Nembhard. This could be a great week, a great weekend for the Nembhard family if Andrew and Gonzaga get it done today. But little brother Ryan, who can also play well himself, very good point guard, he's headed to Creighton, probably take over Zagrowski's spot. Him and Montverde, they get it done. They get it done against Sunrise. Great game from them. Shout out to Caleb Houston. Shout out to Jalen Duran. I know we talk about Amani a lot in that class, but he, special talent, it looks like. He seems to be kind of separating himself as the number 2 guy in that class. Derek Whitehead, also a very good player. Montverde, another very good team. After they had last year what I think was the greatest high school basketball team of all time. That's another thing we can discuss eventually on this show one day. That 2019-2020 Montverde team versus that prime Chino Hills team. Definitely a discussion to be had. But Montverde gets it done here in the GEICO Nationals. The USA Wrestling Team Trials were this weekend, so we now have our representatives for the Tokyo Olympics, which are happening this summer, which I can't believe. It doesn't really feel like it, but happy that it is happening. Thomas Gilman made it, Jordan Oliver, Kyle Dake, David Taylor, Kyle Snyder, and Gable Stevenson make up our roster this year for freestyle wrestling. All very good. Obviously, they just all won, their national championship, I guess you would call this. They won the team trials. Gable has been on fire. I was surprised he took out Wiz the way he did, but shout out to Gable, 20 years old. Could be the second youngest gold medalist behind Kyle Snyder. If he gets it done, Jaden Cox. I really want to see that Jaden Cox, Kyle Snyder best of 3, but Cox showed up, I think, 15 minutes late to the weigh-in, so he got DQ'd. Hate that for Jaden. Hate that for wrestling because it's been a great matchup. 2 of the best in the world, even with Snyder not at the level he was maybe 2 years ago. Hopefully he can reclaim that form because he's definitely going to need it against Saudilev. I think Saudilev, of course he's going to win in Russia, but I'm trying to make sure they're still the same weight class, and he'll be wrestling in Tokyo. But yeah, if he's going to get that Saudilev rematch or trilogy, Snyder definitely got to step it up. Hopefully he's ready. Hopefully he's back on track, working with Kale now. So That's something to watch out for. David Taylor versus Bo Nickel delivered. Good to see the Magic Man make it though. Well deserving. Kyle Dake unseats the GOAT Jordan Burroughs. Dake bombs going to the Olympics. Dake is a monster. Good win for Joe. Good win for Joe. Jordan Oliver making it. He trains now here in Chapel Hill in North Carolina, so shout out to that. And of course, Thomas Gilman gets it done. Not too surprised there. I think he was the favorite, even though it's tough. Those young guys are still kind of developing. Gilman has a step on the curve here. We'll see what he can do in the Olympics. High expectations for Gilman. Hopefully he can put it all together. But yeah, that's the USA Wrestling team. Should be a good team. I think it's a pretty good team. I think that's I think the selections that were made, besides Oliver, was really my big surprise. And maybe Dake taking out Burroughs. But that wasn't awful too surprising, because Dake has really just been trending upwards recently. But yeah, that's USA Wrestling. Very excited to see how they do. We'll see what the con situation is and see how that develops. The Buffalo Sabers. I said it. I did it again, ladies and gentlemen. I said the Sabers, if I talk about them this week, you know, I talked about them last week. I said maybe if I talk about them in the episode, they'll break the losing streak. And what do you know? The Sabers fans rejoice. You broke your streak against the Philadelphia Flyers. You don't have the worst losing streak in NHL history. Glory to you. The Sabers are still god awful and will have the number one. Well, hopefully have the number one overall pick, but it's a lottery. So I mean, y'all could end up with like the 4th pick, and that would just be. Y'all need the number 1 pick desperately. Unfortunately, it's not a great draft class, but I don't know. Maybe one of those guys, you know, turns it up. I think part of the draft class notions this year is because we haven't seen them as much because of COVID. Of course, there's going to be great players in the class, but how great they are, I think, is really a discussion here. And compared to the Shane Wright and the upcoming drafts we have coming up in the NHL with these elite, exceptional prospects, I think that's kind of overshadowing this year's draft. But yeah, Sabres break the streak. Congratulations. The MLB is back. Yes, baseball fans, we back. We back, ladies and gentlemen. And had some interesting storylines. Yesterday I was watching the Angels and the White Sox. Shohei Ohtani, man, I just want him healthy for a whole year to see what he can do. He has the fastest pitch and now the fastest home run this season, which is nuts. It really should tell you about how exciting Ohtani is and how much of an enigma he is as a player. Just a special talent. Went yard. He was having a very good outing until the play that took him out. Had the strikeout, but catcher misplaced it. And then just everything that could go wrong when that play went wrong. Ohtani, luckily he's okay. Wasn't hurt too significantly, but I just want that. Please get Mike Trout in the playoffs, and please let Ohtani. Like, I'm not even an Angels fan. I'm a Yankees fan, as you probably see by the shirts I've worn. But please just let the Angels be good this year and let Trout make in the playoffs and Ohtani be healthy. I want a full season of two-way Shohei Ohtani and to see what he can do. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for episode 35. It has been a very good one. A lot of good stuff to talk about. A lot of very interesting stuff to talk about. Of course, tonight we got Gonzaga and Baylor, and all eyes will be on that probably about a couple hours after this episode is released. So you may be watching this after it, and we'll be talking about what happened. Or you may be watching it before, but either way, appreciate the support lately. Numbers have been going up every single week. I thoroughly appreciate it. And yeah, it's more motivation for me to keep going and keep achieving my goals and some of the plans I have with this podcast and just with this channel and my brand. So I appreciate the love. But yeah, without further ado, hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you have a great week coming up. Ocho, signing off.